what happens if your water breaks? If you think that your water is going to break, I just want to be very clear here that only about 10% of women's water actually breaks before they go into labor. I know that we see this image in the media and in movies a lot, like this big gush of water, and this is what we're looking for, and we hope our water breaks. No, that's not what we want. So if it happens, it happens. It's fine. It's not as common as people make it sound. But I want to share with you some information on what to do if your water breaks. Okay, so there's an acronym that we have to start with. Okay, it is called TACO. If your water breaks, you need to know each of the pieces of information that TACO stands for. It's an acronym. T stands for time. So what time did your water break? Because if your water truly has broken, you need to be able to communicate that information to your provider so that they'll know exactly how much time has gone by since your water has broken. Secondly, A is amount. So how much water did you lose? Did you soak your underwear? Was it just a little bit of a trickle? Most times when we feel like we've peed ourselves and we don't really have any control over it and it just kind of keeps going, it's probably your water being broken. But we see in the movies, we see on TV like this big gush of water and it's like, oh my gosh, my water broke. That's not usually how it happens. It's usually like a little bit of a trickle and you keep thinking that you're peeing on yourself. Some of us already have those situations if we're pregnant and we can't control it. That's a pelvic floor issue. But if you think your water has broken or you know it has broken, you need to know about how much water you have lost. That's A. C is the color. So what color is your water, pee, amniotic fluid, whatever you think it is? This is important because if it is clear and colorless, transparent, it is most likely your amniotic fluid. If it's yellow, it's most likely urine. So if you don't know what color it is, try to put on white underwear or a pad and allow it to continue to come out and trickle if it is, so that you can see what the color is, because the color will also help us determine whether or not your water has broken or if there's something else that may be in your amniotic fluid like meconium or anything else that we need to be aware of. And then O, what is the odor? So they're going to ask you all these questions to say and see, is this urine? Is this amniotic fluid? If it is amniotic fluid and your water has truly broken, there will not be a scent. If you don't know, a little trick that you can do is you can take off your underwear, you can put them in a Ziploc bag and let them sit there for 30 minutes or so. Open up the bag and see if there is a scent of urine or if there's no odor at all. If there's no odor, it's most likely your water being broken. Now, if your water has broken, I want to also call out here, this only happens to about 10% of women. So only about 10% of us will actually have our water break before we go into labor. If you are one of the lucky 10%, I was definitely one of those 10%ers. What do you do? Do you rush to the hospital or your birthing place? Do you stay at home? If you have not started to contract, you are not in labor. I want to say that again. If you have not started to have contractions and there's no pattern, you don't have any contractions at all, you are not in labor. So, yes, I do offer virtual doula services. Check the link in my bio. If your water has broken and you do not have contractions, it's important to ask your provider at that same time, can I hang out at home? I would like to hang out at home and chill so that my body can go into labor naturally. Ask for time, because what's going to happen is, even though they would probably prefer you to be at the hospital, you're just going to be sitting there or you're going to get induced because you're not having contractions. And none of us truly want to be induced because that makes labor pick up real fast, real quick, and real strong. So if that's not what you want, you can go to the hospital and say, I don't want to be induced, but more likely than not, you're going to be sitting there for a while because this is not a home-like safe, for most of us, doesn't feel as safe as our home feels. So asking your provider if you can labor at home or allow your body to go into labor at home is a really great question and something that you should advocate for. Even though we're talking about risk of infection, if we think about this logically, there's probably more people that have come through that hospital room than have come through your house. So as long as you're not getting in the bath, or you're not doing anything that would like allow things in and out of whatever, you know, your bag being broken and the little, potentially a little bit of water that's coming out, as long as there's nothing that's coming in, you're not going to be at an increased risk, true increased risk of infection at home for a little bit versus being at the hospital. And so we have to be able to advocate for ourselves, because what I have seen when people do this, when they stay at home and they allow their bodies to go into labor and their doctors are on board with it, which most of them should be on board with it, hopefully. If not, this is also a moment in time where you can advocate for yourself. You can, if they do want you to be in the hospital for a reduced risk of infection, then it's okay to take your time. We don't have to rush. You have to do what you feel is best, but it is going to be in your best benefit and your best interest and your baby's best interest for labor to start on its own at home. What I have seen from a lot of my clients whose water has broken is that their water has broken. Sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes it's not. Either way, the goal is to just hang out at home. Just chill. We don't need to get in the bath. You can get in the shower if you need to, but you don't need to get in the bath, because that's going to truly and could increase your risk of infection. And they relax, because early labor could be starting in 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, but we're really not at a real increased risk of infection until we're like 18 to 24 hours past our water being broken and nothing has happened. If that's the case, then obviously we need to talk about other options. Do we need to be induced? So on and so forth. I would say try to, give yourself a couple of hours at minimum at home, but you really could be at home for 18 to 24 hours to allow your body to just naturally go into labor. You don't need to do anything, just hang out and be relaxed, because that's what helps your body go into labor, is being relaxed. So if we're at home and we're relaxing, the clients that whose water has broken, who I've been able to support as their doula, they went home, they stayed at home, they laid down and they went to sleep, and within a couple of hours, their body went into labor on its own. And what ended up happening was their water had broken, nothing was happening, they laid down, and about an hour, 2 hours later, this is one mama in particular, her body started to pick up contractions very strong and on its own pretty quickly. So at that point, she went to her birthing location, and when she got there, when she was admitted, she was at a 5. Now, I know some hospitals will not admit you before you're like a 4 or a 5, but if you go and your water is broken, it doesn't matter how dilated you are, your water has broken, so they're going to admit you one way or the other. So if you want to spend as less time, as few hours as possible in a hospital or wherever you're giving birth, you probably should stay at home and labor as long as possible. This is what I tell all my clients. We need to labor at home as long as possible, because that's where your body's going to do the most work, and that's going to be where your body progresses the quickest, because we're in a safe home-like environment. We're comfortable here. So if your water breaks, these are the things that you need to do. You need to know TACO. Know what TACO stands for so that you can relay that information. And then you need to ask, as long as your body has not gone into labor, aka we are not having contractions, we're not in labor, our water just broke. And we have time. We always have time, as long as there's nothing, off, or we're not seeing like a lot of blood or anything like black is meconium. That is something that we should be concerned about. That means baby could be in distress. We don't know. But if everything is clear, odorless, and we're not losing like a ton of fluid, even if you are, it's okay. Just wear a pad, wear a Depends, and just relax so that your body can go into labor naturally. What we don't want to do is go to the hospital or wherever we're going, get admitted, and then we just sit there. And the longer you sit there, because your body is in a foreign environment, it's going to take your body a lot longer to go into labor. And that's when a lot of cascade of interventions happen, suggestions of Pitocin and induction, those kinds of things happen. And yes, your body will go into labor, but it'll go into labor a lot quicker and a lot stronger, and you won't really have a lot of time to adjust. It won't give your body a chance to really progress as well as it would if you do it naturally. So If your water breaks, make sure that you know this. I'm going to save this so that you know what TACO stands for. You know exactly what to do, what questions to ask. And this is also a question that you can ask at one of your next prenatal appointments to make sure, if your water has broken, that you would have the opportunity to labor at home until your body goes into labor naturally for up to 24 hours. And at that point, we can talk about infection. We can talk about things that we need to do next. But most likely, your body will go into labor naturally, and you will have a much more positive labor experience. So, hope this was helpful. I will save this. If y'all have any questions about this, let me know. If you're interested in taking my course where I go into all of your options as it relates to induction, medication, natural pain relief, all of these other things, and that's all in my bio. I would love to educate you. I'd love to just share all this. I was one of those mamas whose water broke, didn't know this information, head to the hospital, and got induced, and it was not a pleasant experience. So if you can't avoid that situation, please do it, okay? But you have to be educated to know how to ask those questions and to know we're not going to rush anything, including labor. We don't need to rush our babies out. They'll come out when they're ready to come out. Love you all. Have a blessed Tuesday.